this computer. So, welcome to my podcast, Words of Wisdom and Guidance. Here we talk about change and healing. This podcast will deliver sessions that delve into breaking free from limiting beliefs, changing negative narrative, and developing tools and guidance to overcome challenges by offering insights, inspiration, and guidance from mentors, coaches, teachers, specialists, and experts. They all have stories to share, and there will be moments that open your eyes, touch your heart, and allow you to hear and resonate on many levels, and hopefully, as intended, bring you freedom to change, to heal. So today's special guest is a lady I met at TEDx talk in my hometown of Swansea, the lovely Sabrina Ben Salmi. She presented a One Family, Six Dreams, and One Mission talk. And it is about family and legacy. And her idea of change is inspiring future leaders by inspiring young people. She says that it begins in the family. And her TEDx talk included her entrepreneurial children, all making a change in the world. This will all be linked here for you at the end of this podcast. She is a coach and a mentor. She is also an author and an award-winning advocate for change. Welcome, Sabrina. It is so beautiful to see you.
It's an absolute honor to be in this space, Deborah. I'm very emotional. Yeah, just really emotional hearing that introduction. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. It's lovely. Being emotional is being vulnerable. And you know why? Because it means so much. And when we get into depths of feelings, I think people really can resonate with that. So we're going to have a lovely little 10 minutes. That's all I'm going to take of your time. I know you're a busy, busy lady, maybe a little bit more. But anyway, let's try. Let's go. So my lovely Sabrina, mother of six, motherhood. I mean, this is a very big topic. And you know what? I am a mom. I've worn that t shirt twice, not six times, but twice. But I think, all of us as mums will have experienced very similar worries. We would be very similar, be able to talk about very similar experiences. So first of all, let's just start. Talk about your childhood, first of all. Tell me about you.
That really caught me off guard, actually. Yeah. So my childhood, I'm a bit older now. When I think about my childhood, I see a bit of a different story to what I used to see. So I've done a lot of work on that. But now, as soon as you said childhood, I saw a little girl with her arms out, just smiling and asking for a hug. Childhood was difficult. I was raised by my mum, single mum, but incredible, would work 2 to 3 jobs just to make sure that she could take care of me. I didn't meet my father until I was about 9. I always had a longing for my father, but it wasn't him, because obviously I didn't know who he was, but I just wanted a father in my life. I went through a lot of bullying where I was. It was quite unusual to come from single parent families. There was when kids are young, they don't mean it, but they would say things like, if your dad doesn't want you, no one will want you. And I sort of internalized a lot of that. So I never really fit in when I was a child. I always used to be I was the speaker for people that couldn't speak, people that lost their voice. I would fight for people that couldn't stand up for themselves. I didn't like injustices. I was a big lover. And the only thing I was really good at was football. And I joined Millwall Lionesses in my teenage years. We used to play garage, one touch in the garage, and one of the guys that owned the garage, he said, you've got a hell of a kick on you, but you're dent in my garage in. You should go and get scouted. You should join a team. And that's how I thank him. His name's George. I really want to give testimony to him and his family, because he changed my life. And he was the one that actually inspired. I think he actually connected me up to get the football trial with Millwall Lionesses. So he was a big figure in my life. When my father came into my life, it was a very toxic cycle. He wasn't frequent, wasn't consistent in any way. I don't remember my dad invested in me in any other way. financially present, just always someone having to ask him to be there for me. So it was just, you just didn't feel good. But I became a tomboy and I became a mother's protector, and I wanted to, give her the world. And because of what she suffered, I wanted to be there for her. So I had tracheotomy that almost cost me my life, and a couple of other childhood illnesses. So I died twice, separate occasions, and they had given me this blessing to bury me. And I think when you go through a lot of pain and rejection at a young age, you kind of look for meaning in your life. So I chose to serve. I chose to walk alongside God and serve. And I must say, my faith has been the one thing that's guided me throughout my life. I'm a funny kid. I would dance around, love food. Anyone that knew me, I would dance in front of the oven when food's being cooked. I was a very playful, innocent child. And someone called me, what they call me, a princess, but I had a level of naivety. Like I thought that the world was the way I looked at it and the way I showed up. So it took me a long time. I was a slow learner, but I certainly got it in the end.
How would you describe your mom then?
My mother, she was everything that I wasn't. And I mean that because I remember saying to mom, I don't know how you do these things. Like I was very quiet and very sensitive, but she had to be strong. She had to be fiery. She had to protect me from things. Like my mother was very creative. I call her gifted hands. I see certain talents in my children as well. My mother, she was funny. She was very thorough, very strict, full of dreams, full of unfulfilled dreams, I would say. It was sad to see that she didn't get to fulfill a lot of her dreams that she had. But she was a powerful girl. She didn't stop at anything. And I'm nothing like nothing like my mom.
Well, I don't know about that. So I've seen quite a few awards that have been handed over to you over the year, and you have this inherent need to just serve, to just be, to just solve, to just, that is something that your mother must have inspired in you. So don't, give yourself that credit. But I know that you are doing so much work with other mothers and what have you. So, when you know that there are mothers that might come across this talk, and they are struggling, maybe it's just struggling to find that moment to be the inspiration that they want to be, or just are struggling themselves in all sorts of ways, because let's face it, teenagers are teenagers, and we just all have those moments. What would you say to them? Because I know you're doing some good work with this.
I think that's such a powerful question. I realize I found it very hard when I took stand on the TED platform, because I think the more I'm getting closer to my calling, it's that movement of energy. So the first thing I would say to you is take a deep breath. One of the things we forget to do sometimes is breathe. One of my oldest daughters, she gave me a gift, and she created this program that I'm actually going to start sharing, 15 for me. And it was so profound that she's the eldest of 5. And she came to me and she said, Mum, you need to take 15 minutes. So I think my short answer to your question is take 15 minutes. 15 minutes to breathe, 15 minutes to reflect, 15 minutes to pause, 15 minutes to be present. And it's not figuring it out, it's just grounding yourself. Especially when you're going through moments of pain, it's not about what else do I need to do next. It's just 15 minutes for me. Because sometimes we can't get out of the house. People will say, oh yeah, get the kids to bed. If I could do that, I would do that. My kids wouldn't sleep for me when they were young. They'll sleep for my mum, not for me. So I think it's just, what is the 15 minutes for me that you will consistently devote your time to daily? And sometimes we underestimate what bigger change that 15 minutes could do consistently throughout your life. And it was the 15 minutes for me that saved my life. I did speak to you about this, Deborah. I set up the Unheard Cries of a Mother, because I wanted to share some of the pains of motherhood. See, everyone sees the glitz, the glams, what my children are attaining. And I attest it straight back to God. If it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't have made it. There were nights where I cried myself to sleep. There were nights where I didn't know if I was going to wake up the next day. I was in an abusive marriage for 16 years. It took 4 years to go no contact. And he was manipulating predominantly 2 of my children. My son, he would take him when he's got him, no contact with the rest. It was just to get at me. He's done the same with my other daughter, who's 18. And just because you leave, like, don't be fooled. Sometimes we kind of surrender to everything people tell us and we feel guilty. Please give yourself 15 minutes. I went round and round in circles, fearing what would happen. How do I deal with this? What do I need to do? Who do I talk to? Who's going to believe me? But the reality is that we tell mums what to do, but can we start helping mums? So I think on top of the 15 minutes for me, who can you turn to for support? Now, depending on your situation, it's not always the obvious. It might be a stranger. It might just be a 15-minute interaction, right? Let's just leave it there. But the reality is that we often get people to, oh, you should leave, you should do this, and you should, I would do all of that if I could. I need you to hold my hand. So 15 minutes of reflection of the truth of that I've done the best I can, but I do need help. I do struggle sometimes, and just make peace with where you are. Because although we say strengths and weaknesses, I don't think it's weaknesses, it's identification, self-reflection and accountability. And it's realizing that if we want to be picked up where we are, we have to first start where we are, honestly. Sorry for the answer, sorry.
No, and not at all. That's absolutely wise words, because we do forget, that we are, inside here. We're not just moms. We actually do have feelings, and we need to nurture ourselves sometimes, and we forget to do that. And it is important to take those moments. So changing children's lives really is your service at the, in terms of education, enterprise, inspiring young people. I mean, you have been instrumental in inspiring your beautiful children out there right now. But you talk about equality, accessibility. So tell me a little bit your education.
Yes. My personal education journey, you mean?
Your personal,
okay.
Because obviously a lot of the time in our adult life, we are being inspired, especially when we're served a call. It comes from experience. It comes from somewhere. This is why I introduced the podcast as, people have stories to tell. When you open up to tell the stories, there's a reasoning for it. And that is why you're doing your service,
Yes. So my education, as an child, I was like, oh. So did my GCSEs. My favourite GCSE was media studies. I don't know what happened, but there was this moment, I remember it like I'm in the classroom now, and my teacher said, connotation, denotation. And it blew my mind. I was like, wow, I was so fascinated. So I did really well in media studies. I think I got pass marks on the rest of my GCSEs, but I did very well with my media studies. So I did my GCSEs. I went to college for a period of time. Business studies I studied at college. I didn't finish the course, if I remember correctly, a long time ago, I can't remember. I remember working in News International, and at the time I was on a conversation with my dad, and I had only met him when I was 9. So being a teenager, it was like, oh my God, my daddy, everything was about my daddy, and he was giving me this attention I wanted. But he never was really present for me. But he said, if anyone's from kind of Asian, African background, there's 3 options. Engineer, I think it's a doctor, or accountant. And I was like, I'm none of those. How am I going to please him? So my mum said I could pretty much follow anything. I was offered a job there, and then I was kind of frowned upon that I didn't take those options. So my education, I did part of it. I remember my step grandfather died, and I feel that I got a bit confused with life. I think maybe it was the closest person that was transitioning to me, and it was just a bit confusing, the change. I went to university quite late. I did an HND and a degree, so my background is actually in computer science. I'm at home, if I get it right, I'm called computer science, and if I get it right, if I get it wrong, I'm called comp sci, and if I get something right, it'd be called computer science. And it's a really funny joke, because I went into that as a way to secure my family. It wasn't a purpose driven, if that makes sense. So after that, I've pretty much studied all forms of modalities. I have won so many awards. I won an award as Visionary of the Year award at the Global Black Impact Summit in Dubai 2024. And that blew me away because it was a surprise award, and it said visionary, because for me, my faith was everything. The visions were everything, and it stood out. It doesn't take away from all my other awards, but it just quite a recent one that stood out. My Mother of the Year award, very close to my heart. But I have studied all forms of modalities, NLP, access consciousness. I've had a very broad and in-depth study, but the biggest university I've ever attended and still attending is the one called Motherhood and the University of Life. My children have been my biggest lessons of all in all
Yeah.
variations.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is lovely. Because we, you talk about legacy and leaving a legacy, but often legacy really for me is more about the idea of generations that have come before. And you kind of, a lot, like you just said, there were three options for you that you were expected. It was almost like it was, predestined. And I think a lot of the time when we sort of go against the grain, it becomes very clear that what served generations before isn't going to serve us. And some people still will try right up for years to just keep following and doing, and because it is expected, and yet they're never happy.
Yeah.
And when we get to a point in our life where we recognize that we've got to make a change, and that the ancestral legacy is not going to serve us any longer, I've got to make that change. And we talk about, in a spiritual sense, of changing ancestral legacy can be very difficult because it's very deep. And it's ingrained patterns and behaviors and belief systems that need to change.
Very well said.
So I just want to put that to you, for you to give us your views on being able to do that, to make that change.
In terms of my family, or what we do for others?
For you, for your family, but how you would maybe say to others, you're in that situation.
So definitely, I love what you touched on, legacy. So remember I said, as a child, when you're rejected by so many, you search for meaning of what is the meaning of my life. And quite early on, the pain of a fragmented family and support system made me realize the importance of it. Sometimes we don't know what it is until we either don't have it or lost it. And raising my children, so the only family I had was my children, my ex-husband now, but and my mum. But I went through 16 years of domestic abuse. I then had a further 4 years of trying to go non-contact, and that was like varied because back and forth with two of my children. Now, one of the things, the reason why I focus so much on legacy is the piece where you talked about what is there in your lineage. I always refer to an institute, the family being the oldest institute in the world. And we all inherit different forms of legacy in terms of our institute. And what I realized is that I had somewhat of a derelict inheritance. It's not to kind of disregard what the efforts other people have done, but I realized it because I was thinking about, what do I hand to my children? So what I realized is that things were going to stop with us, but also begin with us. And we were laying down foundation in 20 years, because like my daughter's going to be 26 this year, but we were laying down this foundation. We didn't know at the time, but you can only connect the dots looking back, not looking forward, right? But we were laying down foundation from what wasn't in existence for 4 generations. So if you imagine the energy it took, the battles, the challenges. And what I started to realize is that inheritance isn't just brick and mortar and finances. Sometimes we just think about what's the financial inheritance. They inherit attributes, personalities, traits, conflict resolution, how they perceive finances, how they deal with conflict resolutions. So what I realized, like, my 5 children and I, we were doing so many things spiritually, but people could see the outward, but there was a lot going on in our lineage. And slowly but surely, each of my children started to reveal their own superhero skills. That's what we called it. They were only little. You'd be like, what's your superhero skills? I can do this and I can do that. And if you talk to children around a dinner table or just at play, they will fire off. And I'm telling you, brace yourself. I wasn't prepared for the answer that I had for a question that I was asking. So I was asking them, what's the superhero skills? And it was so funny. It was like being in a room with Avengers, and they all like looked at each other like, can we tell her? Is she ready? And it just blew me away. Sometimes we have this perception that our children are here, they're blank canvases, they know nothing. And I always say I'm grateful for stewarding my children, because it wasn't a case of you listen here. Don't get me wrong, I am a traditionalist. I think there is that respect. I really do think that there's a distortion now that I don't like. There's a lot of kids overriding. There's a lot of parent abuse going on. And it's part of the work that we want to do and doing. But I started to realize they were firing off, but they knew things that doesn't make sense. You know, they were only young at the time, but they just had this knowing. So I realized that as I started to immerse each one in different environments that they were longing for, they were just firing off. Like I remember a time when Paolo was talking to a group of engineers and he was talking about kinetic energy and technology. And I goes, oh, Paolo, like instead of talking to them, maybe like listen a bit, like they're at the universities. And he goes, no, like he's blowing us away. Like he knows this, and we're working on that. And I was like these kids, their spirit is older than what we assume connected to their ages. And Shay would do all these things, and Trey Sean, and so it was like Lachey, Trey, Yasmin, Paolo, and Amir, and it was exactly the same. And what I love about our work, it isn't a look at us, it's an invitation for families to come on board. So one of the most important messages I hope that people get from our TED Talk is, what are the reflections in your own family? Because every child has gifts. The only trouble is we keep saying, what's your entrepreneurial? What's your entrepreneurial? And sometimes kids can't connect that. Can I make a business out of it? Ask them what their superhero skills are. Ask them how they can heal people. Ask them how they can help. You will not be prepared for the beautiful answers. So some of the things that we do, like public speaking, immersive experiences, building systems and processes. My kids have their own publishing houses. It's not about the things. We have to understand it's sometimes we get confused with what we're doing versus what it teaches us. Children who have pets learn empathy. Children who do public speaking, they learn to command an audience. They learn to believe that they have command and have belief in themselves. So it's not what we're doing and it's selling and this and that. It's not that. There's always an underlying teaching. So what I realize is that if we're creating legacy and we're thinking about how do we pave the way for generations to come, we're going to be doing things that surpass our wildest understanding. So chances are we have to surrender to a power that's greater than all of us.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And Lashy, your daughter, she says, living life many dreams at a time on her website. I mean, I just love that. Absolutely. She's living life many dreams at a time. You know, sometimes, you know, as young people, we just think that we can just have, that what is the dream? There's many dreams. There's lots of opportunities. You know, that statement has got so much freedom to it, to try so many things, to be open to receiving so many things. That is, I mean, that is the power of her words, of what she's put there, and she believes it, you know. And that, I think that's what we've got to really instill, isn't it? And I think that's what you're doing, and your children are showing that. I think it's admirable, absolutely beautiful.
Oh, do you know, I absolutely love this. I can't get my words out. I'm so excited. As I'm speaking to you, I remember the very first book that Lachey and Trey Sean wrote. It's called Kids That Dream Big, with a Z. And when you said about dreams, it took me straight back to there. So when we got a guy from Fiverr to design the book cover. And I want you to go and look at it. And it's not a sales pitch, it's really about spirit. And when we got the book cover designed, after he designed it, we realized he was a Christian. So we're a Christian family. And at the time, there were 5 children on the front cover, but I didn't have 5 children. Wow. And they were all going to this tree. It's beautiful. Look at the cover and it'll start to make sense. And the whole premise of what we've built as a family is the dreams. And I'm so grateful that you picked up on that specific part of her talk, because it's many dreams at a time. We don't breathe and hold our heart and that can't go. We don't walk and stop our arms from moving. We are simultaneous beings. There are multiple things taking place at the same time. It's not about the doing, it's about being. It's not about forcing, it's about surrendering. So the reality is there are multiple things that we are doing simultaneously, but we need to learn how to surrender to the process. And so I'm actually blown away that you've actually picked up on that. That is really, because that really sums up, and it's really to inspire families. How do we dream big together. Everything is about dreaming. We're talking about the imagination, where thoughts become things. We're taking things from the spiritual realm into the physical realm.
Yes.
So we learned as a family, you know, we didn't start knowing it all. We surrendered to the process. We teamed up as a team. We've had our ups and downs. We've definitely been through a lot of pain and tribulations. But it's the inspiration is that when you see our family, remember to dream again. What
Oh,
is the dream that
yeah.
you would dream if you wasn't scared to dream about it? The
Yeah.
dream you haven't shared. My daughter done a talk one time with the late Dr. Miles Monroe. I'll never forget it. Transformation House. And she was on stage and she said to the audience, "Where is the wealthiest place in the planet?" And they were talking amongst themselves. And she said, "The wealthiest place in the world is a cemetery." She said it contains all the inventions that were never done, all the
Wow.
books that wasn't written, all of the dreams that were never shared. And the reality is, are we willing to die with our dreams still inside of us? Or are we going to get all our dreams out before we transition to the next phase?
That's beautiful. Absolutely. I mean, that brings us to the idea of creating partnerships. And you've mentioned a couple of people that in your life that you can pay tribute to that have put you on the path or in a certain way or that type of thing. And I think, I said to you, we're all connected, us mums, if I need, or just on a spiritual journey, we are so connected. There is so, it is a network out there and people need help and they need to, in whatever way, and it can take one word or it can take one, direction or it can be whatever. But I think you'll agree it's about creating partnerships, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, I'm actually trying to turn my phone on because there's something I want to share that's really profound. And it was very meaningful, pivotal for our family as we grew. We are all connected and we need to really understand that right now we can all look out of our windows and know that society is on its knees. So many people suffer in isolation. COVID was the only time I know in existence in my whole life. I've been on this planet for 45 years, but it was the first time I saw an entire world shut down. And it was a revelation of the lack of support systems, but a beauty of the support systems that were also there. There were those that realized that I'm in a community that is really embodied with love and support and guidance, but there were others that were reminded that I'm on my own. And pretty much all of our work that we do is for that one mission. It's all about we are connected. And if I can, I've managed to get it on. Now, this is a message I put it on all of my emails, and anyone that knows me, I'm very repetitious, but it says, "We are all connected. Trust your highest thought, your clearest words, and your grandest feelings. Your highest thought is always the thought which makes you feel good, sorry. Your clearest words are the words that contain truth
Truth
and
and
honesty."
honesty.
Oh,
Your
you got it. You're
grandest
great.
feeling
Yeah.
is
Love.
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 I wanted to finish with it, so I'm
Oh,
so proud of you that you've done that. I was like blown away by that because I took that straight off your email. I thought, wow.
you've given me goosebumps. You've given me goosebumps. Like, if I be honest, that's like, it's moving me because everything we dream of is encapsulated in that. There are men that take their own lives because they don't have no one to talk to. There are
100%.
mothers that don't get to open their eyes up because they're not protected.
Yeah.
There are kids that are paralyzed because they don't have food or protection or people that care about them. And our society is crumbling, not because these young people are out of whack, it's because the very village they were birthed into didn't care about them long enough. And it says that when a child is ready, the village receives the child. And if the child doesn't feel the warmth of the village, the child's going to burn it down to feel the warmth. And I think really as a result of this conversation, I can't thank you enough, is that it's confirmation for some of the work that we want to do. We've got a housing association that we're just starting to share. We want to create ecosystems for families so they can heal. So it's healing, personal development, financial education. Some of the biggest problems that face women or families that go through domestic abuse, and it's not just women, I'm only saying women because I'm a woman, men go through domestic abuse as well, is that finances are an issue, housing and isolation. There are too many of us that live unsupported in the villages that they're surrounded by. We have too many people on this planet for this suffering to be happening. We need to care about our neighbours. Love thy neighbours. We need to care about each other. And I'm actually I can't thank you enough because this is pretty much about our journey. For years, we were shut down not to share our message. But because of the love, because we know, and because that little girl said, make my life have meaning that I can serve others. My children, I cannot thank them. We've had our ups and downs, but I cannot thank them enough for committing to the journey of servitude. My ex-husband tirelessly went out that you will never make it, you will fail, you were born a failure, you'll die a failure. And I thank the version of Sabrina I once was to be the Sabrina I am today. It took me 16 years to leave, and we would have left sooner if we had a village. If we had a village, someone to hold our hand, someone to see our children. And what is inspiring me is that if it happened to us, imagine what's happening in the world.
Yeah,
and our
absolutely.
story and our TED Talk is a testament to women up and down the world, around the country, globally, that you can make it out. And you know, I love what you're saying. You're building that community, women, we support each other. But I think we have so much healing to do on this planet because we're not caring and loving each other enough.
Yeah, yeah.
We shouldn't be where we are right now. We've
Yeah.
got too much to give up on each other now. And we've got beautiful children that are counting on us.
Absolutely. That is our legacy, my
Yeah.
dear. Absolutely. Sabrina, it has been wonderful, absolutely awe-inspiring. So thank you, thank you, thank you for joining today. I'm going to stop the recording now for us.